You know the Psalms, right? Most of us think of them as these beautiful, comforting poems. But what if I told you that hidden inside these verses we know so well, there's a fierce theological battle going on, a direct showdown with a rival god that, honestly, most of us just completely miss.
Take this famous verse from Psalm 24. It's this powerful, sweeping statement about God's creative power, that he owns everything. It sounds so foundational, right? So absolute, just pure devotion.
Well, here's the twist. Because when you drop this verse back into its original ancient world, you suddenly realize it's way more than just a statement of faith. It's an argument. It's a direct challenge aimed squarely at the biggest, most popular god in the entire region.
So in this explainer, we're going to peel back that hidden layer. We'll see how the Psalms are way more than poetry. We'll meet this rival god, Baal, and then we'll break down 2 key Psalms, step by step, to see how this works. And finally, we'll talk about why this ancient fight still matters when we read these texts today.
Okay, so first things first. The Psalms are, of course, devotional. But you have to remember, they were written in a world that was just buzzing with competing religious ideas. And the psalmists, they don't just ignore all that. Nope, they jump right into the conversation, making these really sharp points against the beliefs all around them.
They use this incredibly clever technique called a polemic. Basically, they take the language, the stories, and the symbols of their rivals and, well, they flip them on their head to tear down their claims and show that Yahweh is supreme. To really get how this works, we first need to meet the main event, the #1 contender.
All right, let's talk about the primary theological rival for ancient Israel. His name was Baal. He was the main god of the Canaanite religion, and he's the one the psalmists are constantly, and I mean constantly, pushing back against.
So who was this guy, Baal? Well, according to ancient texts we've discovered, he was the storm god, in charge of rain, thunder, all of it. And his whole claim to fame, the thing that made him king of the gods, was this one epic story, his huge, chaotic battle against the god of the sea, whose name was Yam. Yam was also called Nahar, which means river. By beating these 2 chaos water gods, Baal got the crown. Okay, lock those 2 names in your brain, Yam and Nahar. They're going to be important.
Now, let's circle back to Psalm 24. With all that in mind, let's see how it goes right after Baal's #1 claim to power, that victory over the sea. Let's look at that line one more time. The Hebrew words being used here for seas and rivers are Yamim and Naharat, and their root words, you guessed it, Yam and Nahar, the exact names of the chaos gods that Baal supposedly had to fight tooth and nail to defeat. For an ancient Israelite listening to this would have set off alarm bells. This wasn't just pretty poetry. They knew the stories about Baal. They knew his entire kingship was built on his struggle with Yam and Nahar.
And this is where it gets so brilliant. Look at the contrast here. You've got the Baal myth, this big, messy, violent fight to maybe, just maybe, beat the sea monster. Then you have what the psalmist says about Yahweh. He's not fighting anything. He's effortlessly founding the world right on top of those very same chaotic waters. He didn't have to defeat chaos. He used it as the foundation for his coffee table. It shows total, effortless superiority from the very beginning.
Oh, but it doesn't stop there. Not even close. Later in that same psalm, you get this famous line calling for the temple gates to open up for the King of Glory. And that specific phrase, lift up your heads, well, that's another direct shot at a key scene right out of the Baal playbook.
See, in the Baal story, when messengers from the sea god Yam show up, all the other gods in the divine council are so terrified they literally put their heads between their knees. Baal has to yell at them, "Lift up, O gods, your heads." So what does the psalmist do? He just swoops in, grabs that exact phrase, but swaps one little word. Gods becomes gates. The point is devastating. In Yahweh's council, nobody's afraid. No other god is a threat. The only thing that has to move for the real king is the front door to his own house.
And this same kind of pattern just keeps going. Let's look at our second case study, Psalm 29, which is, if anything, even more blatant. It takes on Baal's signature moves, his voice being thunder, his control of the storm, and just systematically hands them all over to Yahweh.
And again, this isn't just about saying, me too, or my God can do that too. The strategy is to show that in every area where Baal is supposed to be strong, Yahweh is infinitely stronger. It's a complete, systematic dismantling of Baal's entire resume.
It's like the psalmist had a checklist. In the Canaanite myths, Baal's holy voice is thunder. Psalm 29 says, nope, the voice of the Lord is over the waters. Baal throws lightning,
The psalm says, "The voice of the Lord flashes forth flames of fire." Every single key attribute is taken, repurposed, and upgraded.
And then, here comes the knockout punch. Baal's magnificent temple, his symbol of power, was supposedly built from the strongest trees around, the famous cedars of Lebanon. But the psalmist says Yahweh's voice doesn't build with cedars, it shatters them. The very symbol of Baal's home and his strength is effortlessly splintered by the mere sound of Yahweh's voice.
Okay, so we've seen these examples. Pretty cool, right? But so what? Why does digging up this ancient argument actually matter for us today?
Well, it matters because it shows us just how incredibly sophisticated these writers were. This isn't just borrowing ideas. A polemic is a powerful, strategic form of communication. They were taking the most recognizable symbols of their biggest rival and using them to argue for the unique, absolute power of their own God. It's a masterclass in theological debate. You know, understanding this context doesn't weaken the Psalms at all. If anything, it makes them even more powerful. It turns them from these static, beautiful poems into dynamic, living arguments. It shows that the biblical writers weren't just writing in a quiet room somewhere, they were right in the middle of the biggest debates of their time, making their case for what they believed was true. And it leaves us with this really cool question to think about. When we pick up these ancient texts, are we just looking at dusty old religious relics? Or are we actually, for the first time, learning how to overhear a conversation that's been going on for thousands of years? A debate about power and creation and who truly is king that's been hiding in plain sight all along?